それ何万回見ちゃってんのよ。
中アイドル殿の研究をしているのです。
You keep telling yourself that, Broseph.
We opened this week, for whatever reason, with intro from Uta. I mean, it was really short and didn't really add much of anything, in spite of being animated by freaking Ken Ueno, but whatever, it wasn't too intrusive at least. The episode proper opened with Uta, of course advertising their show's toys, and give you a lesson about pleasing the crowds.
Well, glad you asked, as I think we can actually bring in an expert on that. Actually, never mind. I don't think some creepy BDSM puppets are exactly all that crowd-pleasing.
However, while Uta at least knew the basics of idolhood, she apparently didn't know that her own show was airing around this time. Well, okay, actually, a certain someone had uploaded her concert without her consent.
Well, I see someone took a page out of Basho's playbook, though more likely it was Vena's.
As a result, her family unknowingly became fans of their eldest daughter's alter ego, which the girl herself ate up and would be eating throughout the episode. However, this also ended up inviting the Queen of Kira Land into the chat, which hilariously enough, she did through a dial tone of just her announcing herself.
Oh, so this is what Ivy would have turned into if the Grail wasn't corrupted.
I'm not even really exaggerating, as Picarne here definitely leaned more to Ilia's mom's hamminess rather than Purple from Hakuto. Though, to be fair, she did seem like a diligent ruler, as she even recounted the fall of her kingdom to Darkine as she took over with her brand of fan service. Seriously, points to the animators for making the baddies of the show bad again. But yeah, we got some decent enough world building that established the Precure's goal, which was to restore the power source of their kingdom that had been severed in half and ended up stealing the fairies and crystals, like a certain kingdom that had its name stolen by a Twitter knockoff.
It's probably next door to Fruppyland.
However, rather nobly, Picarne told Uta that she should prioritize protecting her own world, as they at least needed to start building up their experience, as well as their collection of MacGuffins like we saw at the end of the first episode. Again, this is all fairly routine stuff for Precure, with a fairy kingdom in peril that could only be saved through a collectathon. What made this season stand out more than its idols was its comedies, such as Queenie here, revealing another part of their so-called legend after Purin had uploaded Uta's stuff.
Yeah, they're called the copyright bots.
But yeah, along with Uta's usual great deadpan response, you just gotta love how the legends of the Precure also discourage stalkerish behavior. It's very cynical, yet childish enough that they can get away with it in this sort of show.
The golden rule of the interwebs.
Though more importantly, Picarne did encourage Uta to keep her superheroine identity a secret, for really all of the practical reasons secret identities exist in the first place. The Cure agreed, as she had enough sense to both realize the Queen was right, and that taking her fairy friend to school would be dangerous. Though it didn't stop her from being superstitious enough to believe in more of her show's obvious product placement, this time some gummies that hopefully she'll share with Shoma later.
No, I think it more likely means a certain someone is going to drop her finisher on the planet yet again.
The following day was actually the start of a new school year for Uta's school. She had ended up in the same class as her old friend Mikoto, who she learned was also a fan of her alter ego after one of her kohai had put up a flyer.
And hey, it looks like they have an account on X. And of course most of them have furry PFPs.
Still, and putting aside how her best friend was Yuri for her other self, Uta tried to get to know the rest of her class, including this one girl named Nana, who volunteered to play for the choir's welcome party for the school. The choir performance itself was suggested by Uta, which ended up connecting the two girls, but I'm sure this won't lead to anything later. Besides, everyone ended up focusing on Cure Idol, which ended up inflating someone's ego like a balloon. Fortunately, she wasn't being too egotistical, at least not to the point that she joined her own fan club, and did generally admire Mikoto's dedication to her alter ego. Yeah, okay, maybe she wasn't being entirely sincere. Regardless, her fandom did end up making her a victim of the week.
Anyone else feeling like they're making a certain statement about idol fandoms?
And while she was still high off of her new fan base, Uta ended up going into the battle rather nonchalantly, which, yeah, you can kind of guess where this was going. Still, points to the animators for not holding back on Uta's scenery chewing to get this point across, which ended up making the Makuranda gain the upper hand on her when she wasn't paying attention, hit all the harder figuratively and quite literally. This also ended up giving Kati an opening to gaslight Puride into believing that she had made a mistake in choosing Uta and that another world was going to fall into darkness because of her. However, after trying not to let her shed a tear and also likely acknowledging her own mistakes, Uta stood up and gave herself some very heartful treatment.
I'd give that a 6 on the Mana scale.
Still, this led to her pulling a big comeback, especially after learning that her friend was in danger. With that, she used her fish on the monster, who I think should have cheered with the lights he already had, but I guess they need to use the company-approved accessories before he got nuked. With that, they also got their next MacGuffin.
Oh great, she took influence from the poop fairies.
Nana also ended up seeing all of this, but again, I'm sure this won't lead into anything like in the very next episode or so. Also, we got a really nice scene of Uta providing Mikoto, and really much of the audience, with some good Yuri fan service. However, the best kind of fan service for me was more this.
Thank you!
Yeah, not gonna lie, that last moment did give this episode an extra star in my book, but it was still pretty good otherwise.
I mean, all things considered, it's a basic lesson about the importance of humility, but they got across well enough, plus the humor again really held up this episode.
And as the start to a new series, they're pretty much doing what they need to as far as character and world building is concerned, so I can't really complain.
As we said last week, this is very much a back to the basics Precure season, which is fine as it is hitting all the notes it needs to feel like a proper series without wasting any time, but it also does have a few of its own little touches. This is probably best exemplified with the introduction of Kira Land and its queen. Like, it was a relatively simple world setting of a fairyland that had been overtaken by an evil force and all that, but it also had some entertaining touches like the queen being a hard ass when it came to copyright infringement. That was not only hilarious, but also gave her by far some of the most personality of any royal in this whole franchise. And that's probably the best way of describing the series so far. It has a lot of personality with characters who weren't just cutesy archetypes. Uta is not only snarky like we said last week, but she can have a bit of an ego. One that she needed to learn how to keep in check, which this episode both played up for laughs, but also imparted a decent lesson about humility that helped to establish Uta as a proper superheroine. It's fine and really only natural to soak in the admiration as an idol, but she also needs to recognize that the Precure half of it is all about being a selfless superheroine. That fact was drilled into her head with a really good fight this week that I think looked even better than last week's, which seems a little backwards as you usually want to start with your best foot forward with your series, but whatever. Good work to Mikio Fujihara for both giving us a good fight this week, as well as this beautiful closing shot to an overall really good episode that helped to define the Precure part of this show's title. Idols and cures are arguably two very different jobs, but one thing they do have in common, they both appreciate some privacy.
Thanks for watching, and while I do also appreciate my privacy, I also don't mind if you guys want to check out some of our other stuff on this channel.
This season's schedule has been quite demanding, but it has also been quite rewarding, giving us a lot of good stuff to watch and of course review.
So look forward to Red Ranger Isekai tomorrow, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and so, the legends were true, huh? You'll never take me alive!